I want to be wealthy. I want to own my time. I want to do whatever the hell I want to do. Especially coming out of the military, I was like, I don't want anyone telling me what to do. I don't want to work for someone. I don't want to show up when someone's telling me to show up. I just want to own my life, and I want to have as much freedom in my life as possible. And I think time freedom is why a lot of people get into real estate investing or business, and then they create these things that actually take them farther away from that. Yeah. So once I realized it was really about owning my time, I started making decisions that aligned with that.
What's up, everybody? It's Jamie. You're listening to this podcast because you want to think and you want to live differently. And if you haven't already, the way to get that done as fast as possible is by joining Gobundance at any level. We're the community that you've been searching for, with 6 incredible pillars around contribution, health, relationships, accountability, adventure, horizontal income. Unbelievable pillars that we do everything around in this incredible community. You can experience the power of being in the best physical shape you can be, having a supportive tribe, achieving your bucket list items, having a community of peer partners, giving back, and building a lifetime of wealth. So I hope you join us. Join this tribe. Don't sit on the sidelines any longer. As we go into uncertain times, join the tribe where you can find the people and the resources you need to see you through. Go to Gobundance.com, fill out an application, and we'll figure out the right community for you, whether it's Emerge, Elite, Champion, or Gobundance Women's. Gobundance.com. Check it out today. Back to the show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Tribe of Millionaires podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Gruber, with my friend Grant Warrington. And be sure to subscribe, like, comment, do it all on this podcast. Otherwise, Grant will show up to your house naked, guaranteed. G-Dubs, what's happening?
What's up, bro? Listen, on my mind, you were asking me, just having a conversation with my wife about, one of the other guests we interviewed, about how you have this W-2, you quit it and you build this other thing over here, but now all of a sudden you've built this monster of a business, and it's like you swapped one for the other. The only good thing in this area, you don't have a boss, right? Yeah. But the nice thing is, we're trying to unpack that, something we're going through right now.
No, I'm in the same boat, man. Like I do a lot of active work. Like I've never, and I hope people know this, I've never said that I was the guy that built all this passive income and replaced my active income and then walked away. That's not how I quit my job. I quit my job because I couldn't do the work for the money anymore, right? It just wasn't fulfilling at all to me. And I traded fulfillment and purpose for not, right? But it's still active. I still make money by doing. The guy we're having on today, he's going to be here in a second, Gabe Hamel. He's the opposite, man. He's fully passive. I mean, he does, nothing's fully passive, but you know what I mean? Yeah. But he's where I want to go. But man, like I think step one is lifestyle freedom. I think I think you can do that without having to have the burden of financial freedom, especially if you're trying to replace like $300-400 grand a year. That's burdensome. That's heavy. Like I got to figure out a way to make $400 grand before I quit. It's like, well, or you can make that doing really fun stuff in less time and being able to do it from anywhere, like me, while you build your passive income to eventually be there. That's kind of been my tack. So,
yeah, I'm interested too. You and I were chatting owner financing. I want to get into that with Gabe. I mean, I think this is that's huge. So I'm extremely interested, in that and exactly what he does. I don't know his story, so I'm really excited to hear this
because I know everything. And
I know you do. I know.
And
we all know.
We all know that I know everything. Here he is.
What's up, hey, man?
What's happening?
I got on, and the first thing I heard was, I know everything.
You're up to speed. Perfect.
You don't know anything. No.
That's the way it works. What the hell, man? It's the wrong way to start. I am welcoming you into this. I should get some buttering up.
All right. You know everything.
Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you, Gabe. At least you acknowledged it.
Yeah.
I would say this for those that are tuning in right now: you're going to have to get out your 6-packs to deal with this guy. I'm a little bit disturbed that my wife sometimes sees and scrolls through images of this guy online. Probably the sexiest man in Gobundance. I don't know where this is going, but this is just my take on it. I'm excited, Grant. I don't know about you. I don't know if you can tell.
I can tell. I'm a little nervous, but I can tell.
I'm
Look, we're going to dive in.
flattered. I'm slightly flattered here.
You should be slightly flattered. We're going to dive into seller financing. We're going to dive into health, veganism, so many different topics. This guy's incredible. Gabriel Hamel, welcome to Tribe of Millionaires, brother.
Hey, Jamie, thanks for having me. Grant, thanks for having me.
All right, let's. I want to start with the veganism thing. We were talking yesterday. We had a couple of guests on, and we had what's his name? What was his name at the Detroit event? Grant, the biohack guy.
Dave Asprey.
Asprey. So you're a vegan. You've been a vegan 14 years?
18 years this month.
18 years. I was off. Wow. So you've been a vegan 18 years, which so you don't, there's nothing.
Still alive. I'm still alive. Can you believe that?
Still alive, in amazing shape too. This
Not
guy, what's
protein deficient either.
What is your GB9, by the way? Your last GB9 was like 1,030 or something like that?
I think the last time it was like 330 something. Yeah.
Your age included or no?
That was with age, yeah.
Jesus. Wow. But you're what? You're 39, 40? How old are you?
40. Yeah, I turned 40 in May.
So it was like a 300. You did like a 300 without age.
Yep.
Wow.
What was the one, like, which one did you, I mean, you crushed them all, but like, was there one of them that you did like 80 of?
The squats and the push-ups I did a ton of, yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, we were talking with, or Dave Asprey talked about like veganism is the worst thing you can do, right? He's all about biohacking. And we were talking about this carnivore MD guy, like forget plant-based, go all meat, all that good stuff. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Maybe it's for specific people, different things, but like you're not protein deprived, like you said. You've been a vegan for 18 years. You're a health nut, man. You're in incredible shape, as we talked about. So what, I don't know, why veganism? Why, and does it really work? Is carnivore, like, convince me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to convince anyone. Like for me, it's like I'm just a results driven guy. And so years ago, almost 18 years ago now, I read an article. It was sitting at an ex-girlfriend's house at the time about a guy that reversed colon cancer by going vegan. And I thought, and I hadn't even eaten my first salad. Like I was like all meat. Like I need protein, want to get big, want to get strong. And I read this article of a guy who was told that he would die if he didn't do chemo and radiation. And he was deathly afraid of chemo and radiation, had colon cancer the size of a softball. And a friend of his said, hey, just try this, go vegan and see what happens. And so this guy, no medicine, no nothing, went vegan, and less than a year, cancer's gone, never came back. And I thought, cool, one guy, one story, plus he was selling a greens drink, so he kind of had a bias. And my initial thought was like, I should probably eat salad. I should probably add more vegetables to my lifestyle. But then I thought, I wonder if there's other stories. And so I just started doing my own research, and I wasn't interested in like money-backed research or college-backed research. I wanted to see just like individual testimonies. And I got obsessed of like just individual testimonies of people literally reversing everything from heart disease and cancer and tumors, minor funky skin stuff. And I was just convinced, and in less than a week, like I'm just an all-in guy. Like in less than a week, I went from being a huge carnivore to 100% vegan. I've never eaten a bite of something not vegan since. And it's, I don't know, it's not a matter of right or wrong. Like I just feel too fucking good to ever go back. Like my energy feels good. My strength feels good. I mean, I just feel good. I just feel phenomenal.
What's a day? What you wake up? What do you eat? Like, because you mentioned you get protein, everything's vegan. Does that mean, you're eating cookies, sugar? I mean, you don't look like it, but
well, that's the thing too. Like, there's a lot of shitty processed vegan food. I mean, you could eat vegan donuts, and I mean, cigarettes are probably vegan. Doesn't mean they're good for you, right? So like, I also very much believe in like, maybe a qualitarian, like the quality of foods and the quality of calories too, so, for breakfast, I'll eat usually like a steel cut oatmeal, sometimes a granola, but not the same, even like a granola. There's shitty, really sugary processed granola. And then there's granola with, that's really simple ingredients. I sometimes use the example, like I've asked some Gobundance guys, I'm like, hey, is a peanut butter and jelly sandwich healthy? And guys are like, no, or yes. It's like, you could have the shittiest white bread with the worst peanut butter and all these additives and jam that's like, doesn't even have real fruit in it, versus like a sprouted whole grain bread with peanut butter that's only made from one ingredient and jam that's actually made from fruit, to, they're both peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but the quality of nutrients are very, very different. And so the quality is important to me too. And so, I eat a big variety. I mean, with a lot of Thai food, burritos, and you can do anything vegan and use quality ingredients.
Now I feel bad about getting pizza tonight.
There you
I feel
go.
guilty. I feel guilty about doing pizza tonight. Not only is it's not even, I could get vegan pizza, but it's just like, I got to clean up my diet a little bit too. I need more vegetables in my life, and I'm 44. I didn't have this revelation at 22. Let's go back a little bit. So thanks for the veganism speech.
Sure.
But so you're a real estate investor by trade nowadays. You travel a bunch. I see all that you do. Can you give us the beginnings of that? How'd you get started in real estate? When did you get started? All that stuff.
Yeah. And so, going back before even, I guess, getting into real estate, I was in high school, and that just wasn't my environment, right? I couldn't, it was hard for me to connect the dots between like, how does this, what I'm learning in the classroom or supposed to be learning, because I almost never paid attention, how does this relate to real life? And I just couldn't connect the dots. I saw a lot of people, it was, hey, go to school, get a job. I watched a lot of people doing what they hated. I had amazing parents, but they both worked, minimum wage jobs or barely above minimum wage. And I was like, this just isn't what I want. And so I just didn't know what that meant. I really stayed in high school for the social aspect, and I was a high school wrestler. And that's really what kept me in high school. And then I'd also joined the Army National Guard my senior year of high school. I joined an infantry unit. I was doing the 1 week in a month thing, just like the commercials. And then a couple years, I graduated high school in 2002, Rich Dad Poor Dad, gets into my hands, and I start reading that. And it's the first book I actually read cover to cover, word for word. It's the first book that I started reading. I'm like, this actually makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so I was convinced in my mind after I was like, it kind of gave me words to what I didn't even know I was missing. And I'm like, yes, this is what I'm going to do. And so in my mind, I was like, I am going to become financially free. I'm going to be wealthy, and real estate's going to be that tool. And then shortly after that, in 2003, I got a phone call, and I was deployed to Kuwait and Iraq for a little over a year. So I spent all of 2003 and 2004 in Iraq, and constantly just telling my friends over there, I'm going to come back. I'm going to buy real estate. I'm going to build this, real estate empire, and I'm going to be wealthy. I'm going to be a millionaire. And they're like, dude, you're an idiot. You're living in your friend's attic for $100 a month. The fuck are you talking about? Like, right. You've never had a real job. I mean, they're just telling all these things, and I'm like, oh no, you'll see it. And they're like, how? And I'm like, I don't know, but I will. And so I come back from the war in 2004, and I just start looking for houses. And so, this is like during the subprime. And so 2005, I bought my first house. It was a no money down. It was an 80-20 loan, if you remember those during the subprime. Yeah. So I buy one in 2005. I buy one in 2006. I buy one in 2007. And these are no money down. And I was like, this is easier than the books. I'm like, my initial goal was like, I'm going to buy a house a year for 20 years, and I'm going to be set, and I'm going to be doing really well. Opened up a small nutrition store like 2006, and like literally never made more than a few $100s a month. And then by 2008, my first son was born. And that was my real, oh shit moment of, okay, I have these couple houses, couple $100s a month, cash flow positive, but I have no real income. I have no education. Like, what do I do? So I took a bunch of odd men jobs, and I went back to the bank and said, I want to buy another house. And in 2008, as we know, everything changed. So in 2008, they're like, hey, guidelines have changed. You need a job, you need a down payment, you need income, none of which you have. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I've been buying homes for the last 3 years, and I've made payments every month on time. Like, we don't care. You need, for an investment property, you probably need 30% down. And I'm doing the math. Like, oh my gosh, I could get like 10 minimum wage jobs, and I don't know where I'm going to come up with, the down payment. And so, I decided I was going to start buying with seller financing. I just kind of remember just hearing about seller financing. I didn't know much about it. I knew the other options outside of bank money was private money, hard money, or seller financing. And at the time, I knew nobody with money. I knew no one in business. I knew no one. I wasn't comfortable asking to borrow hard money. So I spent a year just looking on Craigslist for owner financing deals. And after about a year of looking and every night and calling people every night and having those conversations, I finally did my first seller finance deal. It was 2 duplexes side by side, 4 units, and that replaced my minimum wage job. And so I stopped working. Then I was 20. I think I was 27 years old when I stopped working, and I was financially free because my expenses were low. I was still poor as shit, but I was able to replace my income very quick and very young because my income was very low. And that was really the start of my real estate journey.
Yeah, you're a deferred gratification guy too, if I'm not mistaken. Like you took the time to allow for you to stay at low expense and grow your portfolio. Now, seller financing. How did you do that first? Like, you have no experience. How did you offer that to that first seller?
Yeah, it was interesting because I went out and looked for sellers. I would type in just those keywords: owner financing, seller terms, owner terms. And I just started having conversations with potential sellers. And a lot of these sellers, so this like 09 through 13, everything I bought was no money down seller financing. And I've never, even to this date, I've never traditionally financed a property ever. And we can get into that later if you want. But I just started having the conversations with these sellers. And I felt fortunate because I had no money to put down. And what I found is most sellers, they either wanted the down payment or they were stuck on a certain price or a certain interest rate, but they all wanted something different. So I wasn't going out there and convincing these sellers of why they should do seller financing. I just found sellers that already wanted to carry financing. And then I would just ask them the question, hey, what kind of terms would you be interested in? In fact, after I did a few of these deals, I thought, like, this is so amazing. My only criteria originally was, hey, it had to be cash flow positive. And after I did a few deals, I thought, oh my gosh, I need to go educate all these sellers on how amazing this is. I had sellers thanking me for buying their property. I'm like, why are they thanking me? I literally walked away with cash at closing because of the deposits and the prepays. And I'm like, why are they thanking me? But I realized it really truly was a win-win scenario. But I also realized, wait, I never convinced or educated these sellers on what seller financing was. I just found sellers that wanted to carry financing and asked them, hey, what kind of terms would you be interested in? And then they told me, and based on that simple question, it would be really obvious. Is it price? Is it down payment? Is it interest rate? Is it some other aspect of the deal? And I would just create terms that gave them what they wanted and also worked for me. And then that really created that win-win.
Yeah, amazing. I locked up a little bit there on my Wi-Fi. My apologies. But so you create that win-win with these sellers. How many? You said until 20? What year? You seller financed everything till 2013?
Yeah, so 2009 through 13 was all no money down seller finance deal.
How many deals?
Gosh, I think it felt like a lot back then. Now it feels like nothing. I think I did 12. It was like 17 units and another 6 unit, I think, in like right at 2013. And then 2014, I refinanced all those property in the long-term debt. And that was really my proof of concept, because people would ask me all the time, like, well, how much reserves did you have? I was like, I had none. Like, isn't that risky? I was like, I had nothing to lose. Like, it would have been more risky for me not to do the deal. I mean, literally my only criteria was, hey, if it's cash flow positive, as long as I have tenants in there paying rent, if I were to default on any of those, which I never did, I would just give the property back at the end of the seller finance term. So in 2014, I had better tenants paying higher rent, interest rates were low, prices were back up, and I refinanced into long-term fixed debt. And what I realized, all these properties by then appraised out 70% loan to value or better. And I realized I just got into every single one of these properties with the bank financing similar to what I could have gotten if I would have had or been able to put 30% down on every one of these, except for I got these with no money down. And I just got really addicted to high leverage, but cash flowing leverage. I've bought in almost everything I own, 90 to 100% leverage to date, but my portfolio sits at about 50% leverage. A lot of that is because I'm buying stuff that's poorly managed, under rented. I don't rely on the upside, but the upside's there. And so I just really understood that using leverage was a way and would be the way that I would be able to buy real estate.
Now, do you still use seller financing at all today? Is it a component of what you do, or are you sort of like, no, I did that, and then I built this snowball where I was able to take my money, and now I just refi and dump money on the new deal?
Yeah, it's kind of a mix. So in 2014, when I did those initial refinances, one of the sellers that was carrying a couple of those notes, she had said, "Hey, what am I going to do with all this money?" Because she had a big payday. And I said, "Hey, you can lend it back to me." Now, up to that point, I'd never borrowed private money. She had never lent private money, and she thought I was kidding. She kind of laughed and was like, "Ha ha ha." And she called back a couple months later and she said, "Hey, are you serious?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And I had just had a property in contract, and she said, "I'd be happy to finance that." So, and keep in mind, we had 6 years of me making payments to her on time, and we already had that trust. I kept my word contractually. I kept my word verbally. I used to hand deliver my checks to her every month just to have that FaceTime and build that relationship. And so yeah, when she had a big payday, she was happy to lend that money to me, and she's lent me a lot of money since then. So I really focused on the relationship aspect. It wasn't transactional. Just because our seller finance terms ended didn't mean that she wasn't happy to lend me that money. And then to this point, I've borrowed a lot. I've done hard money, and then I'll refinance that into long-term debt, some other private money, more seller financing. I mean, the second mobile home park deal I ever bought was a 2% down deal, 200% cash on cash. Wow. And every deal, no matter how it's financed, I can trace back to a conversation or relationship. And so I focus less on the transaction and more on the relationship. I like people, and I like putting deals together, and it's just part of who I am. And I just kind of keep those things all together.
What about repair costs? Like, everything we've bought has just been just about garbage. It's needed a ton of repairs. What are you doing with that?
It's a good question, especially those early properties, right? Like,
yeah,
I'm just making this shit up as I go back then. Like, I mean, literally, I had crappy tenants, and there was a lot of deferred maintenance, and I'm like, they're paying rent. As long as they're paying rent, I don't have to worry. But back then, like, I mean, the first tenant moved out, and I remember like, oh my gosh, this carpet hasn't been replaced forever. And I remember pulling that up, and I'm like, all right, the floors look okay underneath. Like, I don't really have money for, like, literally, I didn't have money for carpet, and touched up some paint. I mean, that's not how I operate now, but I would slowly do stuff, and I would slowly get tenants in there. And then when I hit that 17 unit mark is also when I hired a property manager. I realized I'm not that handy. I hated doing it. It's not what I got in real estate in the first place. My best use of time was putting deals together. And, as soon as I turned those properties over to property management and they had those systems in place, I could then focus on other deals. So the first time I bought, an 11 unit property was within about 2 months of turning everything over to property management. I let them do what they're good at, and I could focus on what I was good at. But yeah, early on, I mean, when there was repair and maintenance, I was just winging it. I had to do the bare minimum because I didn't have money. Now I try to upload it and get as much of that done up front as I can. And then as I shifted, 2019, 2021 was really focused in the mobile home park space with mostly tenant-owned homes. And so that takes a lot of the maintenance and repair costs off of me. And that requires good property management and enforcing that the tenants actually follow the rules and regulations of the park.
How'd you make that transition from the single families? I mean, was there something that, like, for us, we realized, like, oh shit, we're going to have to buy 100 single family homes to start making some actual money? Like, is that what happened with you, or can you talk about that?
Yeah, it was part of it. I mean, I was looking at, like, how do I scale? And I by this time I had gotten really clear that I didn't want to syndicate. I didn't want to raise capital. I've never raised capital. I've never put my money into someone else's.
Why? Just curious. Why did you ever want to raise capital?
Yeah, and I'm not against it. I think, like, there's so many ways to be successful within real estate. For me, it was a few different things, right? Like, a lot of my decision was based on the ability to own my time, and then that time freedom. And I talk a lot about time freedom because, initially when I started buying real estate, especially when I was young, I'm like, I'm going to be rich, and I'm telling her I'm going to be rich, and like, it was literally a conversation with myself. I was like, wait, why do I want to be rich? Like, I don't need all these I'm not like I necessarily need a bunch of flashy things. I don't want to go swim in a pile of money. Like, why do I want to be rich? And I realized, like, I want to be wealthy. I want to own my time. I want to do whatever the hell I want to do. especially coming out of the military, I was like, I don't want anyone telling me what to do. I don't want to work for someone. I don't want to show up when someone's telling me to show up. I just want to own my life, and I want to have as much freedom in my life as possible. And I think time freedom is why a lot of people get into real estate investing or business, and then they create these things that actually take them farther away from that.
Yeah.
So once I realized it was really about owning my time, I started making decisions that align with that. So it's, I got to a point where I'm like, okay, do I open up a property management company? And then it was like, I'm watching some of my friends open up property management companies, and I'm like, they hate it. They're dealing with, not only are they dealing with all these tenants, they're dealing with all their employees. And I'm like, I don't want that. And I'm doing the math. I'm like, I could hire a third party and again, like focus what I'm good at. I've never been an agent or broker. That crossed my mind too. Do I want to build a big team? No, that takes me away from what I really want to do. It's just by cash producing assets. And so it was the same with syndication. Like, I joined Gobundance, and it's like everybody's syndicating, that's how they scale. And I know it's a long answer to your question of why I got into mobile home park. So
this is great.
I'm thinking like, well, how do I scale in a way that still allows me to have my time? And I've realized like what's given me the ability to have my time at this point is really good property management. They do what they're good at, and I can have conversations with them on big picture stuff, but I'm not in the trenches with the day to day. I let them do and focus what they're good at. And so, I was looking at the larger multifamily, and I just felt like, 2018, just cap rates were being condensed down to nothing. There was a lot of competition. Not that there isn't in the mobile home park space now, because there has been, but I was just looking for return, and I found a lot of mobile home parks that kind of fit that similar criteria as my early properties: poorly managed, under rented, specifically in the mobile home park space. A lot of these parks weren't having utilities built back, and it just seemed like an easy way to increase. Let me give you an example. So the first park I bought, rents hadn't been increased in 4.5 years, and utilities weren't being built back. By my property manager sending out a notice of a small rent increase, and 6 months later building back utilities, that added $30,000 to the NOI with me spending $0. And that's hard to do in the apartment space. That same mobile home park, I paid 1.3 for, put very little money down, got a hard money loan. That appraised out at 2,775 less than 2 years later, because values are based on the NOI. So yes, some of that was the market. Some of that was, I had the cap rate condensing on my side. But it's like, to me, it just was an easier way to add value by finding a park that's poorly managed, doesn't have utilities built back, it's under rented, than having to go in and do 50 rehabs and deploy a bunch of capital just to raise the NOI.
We were talking about this earlier, right before we started recording, or actually, I guess when we started recording, it might be at the beginning of this podcast. I don't even know. But this idea of like designing, Aaron Velke we had on, right? It might be the prior episode to this one. I don't know, but he talked about like entrepreneurship is and entrepreneurship is not. Now, what it's not is, in his definition, is I had a job, I didn't like my job, so I create something else. I get out of my job, and it just creates a job, right? Yeah. Where I'm tied to what I'm doing all the time. And that's my risk for me. Like, exactly. I like what I do. It's a major upgrade. My life is a major upgrade over what I had before, but I'm still very active, right? And I do like to work. I don't know if I'm convincing myself of that or if it's real, but I do. I tend to want to be productive in some way. But I love what you're talking about, Gabe, with the idea of, I think it's like building a lifestyle business versus a scalable business, right? Like you're saying, the number one criteria I have is this is my life design. And as long as what I do, like, okay, property management company, no. And I know, Grant, you want to talk about that. Property management company, no. Multifamily, well, maybe, but I like mobile home park for these reasons because it fits my lifestyle design, right? Grant, this is like exactly what we started talking about, wasn't it?
Yeah, 100%. No, this is, that's why I was really looking forward to picking his brain on this one. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We built up this monster, like I said, and trying to unpack it. We don't want to be a property management company.
Which you are.
Which we are.
Yeah, and I think it's tricky because I've seen, as I mentioned before, like people, they get into a certain business or specifically to real estate because they want to have their time. You ask people, or I ask people all the time, like, well, why do you want to be wealthy? Why do you actually want to be wealthy? And it's
so I could do what I want when I want it. That's exactly.
Always. It's always about like more time with my family, more time with this. So for me, I got really clear on the few things that are important to me. It's my family, it's my health, it's the ability to be able to travel, it's to be able to acquire assets in a way that doesn't take away from those things. So it's really easy when I'm presented with something like, hey, does this align and take me closer to the life that I'm living and want, or does it take me farther away from that? And with time, people may do different things, but it's really about more choices. And so I just want to make sure what I'm doing aligns. And the people that enjoy working, I think there is a small percent. You get like the Gary V's of the world, like,
yeah.
And Jamie, I'm pretty sure you're a Gary V fan. I've heard you say before.
I am.
And I love the guy, and I think he's true to himself, right? Like, I don't think that guy wouldn't work 100 hours a week.
Yeah.
Even if, that's who he is. Like,
Him.
He enjoys that. That brings him joy. The majority of people that I talk to, that's not who they are. I think that's the rare percentage. And most people say, I want more time with my family. I want more time to travel. I want more time to give back to this organization, or more time to be with these people. And so it's like, those are the people. It's like, well, then why are you grinding 100 hours a week? If you say these things are the most important, what are you doing to have that in your life?
It's incongruent, right? It's incongruent. Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, Grant. You had a PM question, I think.
Yeah, just based on that. Now, are all your properties, are they all in the same area, and you hired one property management company and you got lucky and this property management company just kicks ass? Or are they all over and you have different PMs? Like, how do you hire them? How does this work for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. So a lot of my properties initially I'm in Oregon, Eugene, Springfield. A lot of them were kind of in that area initially. And so I had gone through a couple property management companies that were not great. So it took me, a lot of trial and error, and I didn't really know what's good, what's bad. I interviewed a few that I'm like, there's no way I'd let them manage my properties. And then, so a lot of my stuff that's still in this area, I have a property management company manage those, and they're phenomenal. Like, that's what they do. That's what they focus on. And they do great. And then about an hour south, I had an apartment complex that I had another property manager manage, and she was phenomenal. And that's the same town I bought my first mobile home park. And I had asked her, hey, have you ever managed a mobile home park? She's like, I know the space, because I grew up in the area. I've never managed a mobile home park. She is an ass kicker. Wow. She's brought me multiple parks. She's managing, I have 8 parks. She manages 5 of them. She manages 5 of the 8 parks, and she is phenomenal. So my local management company here, they kick ass. She kicks ass. So not only is she an amazing property manager, she's brought me deals. She knows the area. So specifically, like, to that area, I want to buy more parks and properties in that area because of her ability to manage. And then earlier this year, I bought my first RV park, and I hired I realized I almost had a sphere around like a W-2 employee, like, I don't want employees. I'm almost like priding myself. I'm like, I've never had an employee. I don't want employees. But I bought this RV park, where my other parks are all long-term tenanted. The RV park is more of an operational business. And I ended up hiring this guy, also an ass kicker, 60 years old. I actually bought this place with no one lined up to management. I just knew, like, this was a good property. There was so much opportunity. Like, I'd be stupid not to buy it. And I just believed, like, the right person would show up. And then this guy literally drives 400 miles to come meet me. And then he drives 5 hours after meeting me and goes and, like, stays at the park. And he makes that park so passive for me. And an RV park is not passive. Like, and I just, so it's taken a while, but I also just trust the process, and I trust that the right people will show up and do what they need to do.
So your superpower is this ability to find deals, put deals together, bring people in, you buy great assets, right? And you're true to you. I think that's your superpower, right? Like, it's not operations. It's the finding the asset. So you bring in people that operate for you, but you still have to check in with those folks. And I'm asking honestly for the same guy. It ain't operations for me. Yeah. How do you, or what's your way of ensuring? I almost feel like in some ways, like, property management, there's sort of like a cost of my time freedom that I'm willing to allow. Like, this is probably more than I needed to pay for whatever maintenance issue that they had or whatever the case may be, but I didn't have to do anything with it. So I'm okay with it. It's not like, it's not so far out of bounds. Do you have that? Is that kind of your mindset? Is it like, hey, look, I'm not the guy that's going to redline every month's income statement and say, you wasted $800 this month. I need you to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you do? Or are you like really meticulous when it comes to that relationship with the property manager?
No, I'm not. Like I believe they're better at managing property than I am. And these property managers, so my local property manager and the woman that's managing my mobile home parks, she also has really great third-party relationships with contractors, with subcontractors. Like, sometimes she's like, this is too expensive, and like her husband will go out there and do it. And it's the same with my RV guy. Like, as much of an ass kicker as he is, like, he sends me a picture of like the office, and he's like, hey, this is kind of looking like it needs paint. Next day, he sends me a picture of the whole entire exterior is painted. Like, wow. I didn't ask him to do it. Like, he just does it, right? And he just constantly, he's like, hey, I laid down some more gravel and extended this pad like 12 more feet so we can get bigger RVs. And so like, he has a background in implementing things. He used to work for a couple that would buy RV parks all over the country, and they'd basically hire him to go there and run it. And then he would get them running well, and then they would go sell it. And he's like, hey, I just want to live here forever and do this forever. And I'm like, that's great, because I have no interest in running an RV park in Eastern Oregon, but this guy does, and he loves it. So he's literally working his dream job, and I'm able to own an amazing piece of property that he's running a business on. And so it's a win-win. And it's the same thing with my other property managers. It's like, not only are they making money on the property management side, but they bring me a deal. They're earning the commission on that. So it's like everybody's happy. And I don't micromanage them. I know they're cautious of how they spend my money. I look over my statements monthly to make sure there's nothing crazy out of the ordinary. And it's rare that I'm like, hey, what's this? And usually it's something that like they've messaged me about, and then I've already been like, oh yeah,
I forgot.
Oh yeah, this was when whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, got it.
Yeah, guilty. Yeah. No, I do the same thing. The mindset that you have, I think, is similar to mine. It's and maybe it's a way of explaining away whatever, a high expense. But when we turned over stuff to management, it was like, they were willing to go places with rents, for instance, that I wasn't when I was self-managing. Like is there also like more costly things that I see than when I managed it? Sure. But one, I don't have to do it. And two, there's upside that I'm recognizing that they provided as well, right? So it's like, that's where I get into look, if they did nothing, if they're literally degrading your cash flow or degrading the value of a product, that's one thing. That's a bad manager. But if it's somebody that's like, no, hey, they've been aggressive with rents, they know their market, they're taking care of it, I don't have to get involved. But every so often, to your point, it's like, that paint's probably a little bit more expensive than we needed, but it is what it is. You move on from it. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think a good there's a lot of really bad property management companies out there. And I do believe in of the mindset that a good property management company will not only add value to your life, but will also add value to the property. And so I'm constantly amazed at I'm like, oh my gosh, not that I'm complaining, but I'm like, this is what my property is renting for. This is amazing. I don't know if if I was in the weeds doing that, if I would have ever raised the rent to that amount, and so I'm still amazed to this day the rent that some of my properties are pulling. But those property managers, they're in the day-to-day, they pay attention to that stuff. So sometimes it's like, hey, this could use paint, but I really don't think so. We have 5 people that want to rent this the way it is at a higher rent amount, and I'm like, sure, let's go. Other times it's, hey, this really does need some paint, and we do that, we're going to get this higher rent, get a better tenant. And so I just trust them to do their job.
I love it. The story you have of like 05, that's an anomaly as far as the financing, right? We can't get that financing anymore. I don't think anyway. We shouldn't be able to. But then you went through this Craigslist time. You're finding people that were willing to do seller financing and everything else. If you were brand new today, starting today, and I don't care if you're in Rochester, New York, or Des Moines, Iowa, or whatever, is the strategy and the way in which you went about it doable for somebody that's just starting to get into real estate? Like, can you find keyword search, seller financing, verbos, whatever it might be, where you can do what you did and scale the kind of business that you did now, starting now, or is that time past?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say, I mean, sure, go to Craigslist and look at everything that's for sale. Do that for a year.
Yeah.
I mean, that might be 5 minutes of your day to see what's out
Right.
there, and then call those and have those leads. I think more importantly though is just building the relationships. I think I said earlier, like every deal I can trace back to a conversation, a relationship, and a couple just like easy examples. Like the very first deal I did in '05, hot market, everything's for sale, everything's flying off at cash. I had no cash, and I was just getting outbid on all these properties. And then I end up buying that first house with a friend of the realtor's son. And I'm standing in this with the seller saying that he'll sell it to me for less than what, I know the market value is. And I'm like, nobody else knows this is for sale. So I buy that. I live in a room. Now they refer to it as house hacking. Back then, it just made good sense to rent out 2 of the rooms. I went out and made business cards. I owned 1 home and was like, I'm an investor. Made a business card. Second deal I did was a guy at the gym because I gave him my card and said, I'm investing in real estate. And that's how I found my second deal. '06, still a hot market, not listed. And then a story I share a lot is in 2010, there was a developer in town that was building all these high-rise apartments, all this new stuff. And I was just fascinated, like, who's this guy that's building this? And I share the story a lot because it outlines how important relationships are, but also an amazing seller finance deal. So I reached out to him and was just like, hey, I want to know your story. I wasn't looking to sell him anything. I wasn't looking to buy anything. I just wanted to know what his story was. And graciously, he invited me to his office and just kind of shared with me, hey, I was buying multifamily properties when I was going to law school in the '70s. And then there was an opportunity to develop, and I started developing. And, we kept in touch. It's not like we became best friends. It's not like we talked all the time or hung out all the time, but we kept in touch. He kind of was paying attention to what I was doing. I was seeing all the amazing stuff he was building. And it was close to a decade later that he said, hey, Gabe, my friend's selling a single family home in the town over. Are you interested? And by then I had just bought my first mobile home park. And I said, hey, you know what? I'm really not looking at single family at all. I'm really focused in the mobile home park space. And he's like, that's interesting. He's like, I have 4 parks. And I said, would you be interested in selling one? He's like, I would. I said, would you sell or finance it? He said, absolutely. And so that was my 2% down, 200% cash on cash deal. Now, the thing that was unique about that property is we had that relationship. He already knew, like, and trusted me. He had a lot of income already. He was a sophisticated investor himself. He just wasn't, his time and energy wasn't spent in the mobile home park space. And so he didn't want a large down payment. He didn't want it because he already had enough taxable income for that year, and because he already had that trust. And then I refied him out less than 2 years later. I paid $820 for that park, and it refied it appraised at 2.3 like 2 years later. And so it's like all around a win. Now those other 3 parks he hasn't sold me yet, right? But I already know he's like, because I bug him every couple of months. I'm like, hey, I heard you're going to sell those parks. He's like, no, Gabe, not yet. But I promise you'll be the first one to know. And so it's like, I don't care if he's ready to sell those next week or next month or a year from now or 10 years from now. Maybe I'm not even going to be buying mobile home parks, 10 years from now. I just want to be at least the first person that he thinks about when he gets ready to sell those. And I try to position myself with potential sellers just like that. Like, I just want to at least be who they think about when they might be selling something, whether I say yes or no. And so I think, going to your question of like, what would I tell a new investor?
Yeah.
Go build relationships and tell everybody what you're looking for, because deals don't just fall in your lap, but it feels like they fall in your lap when you tell enough people the asset class you're looking for, the area you're looking for.
Yeah.
And then it starts to feel like that, and it can feel slow, but eventually it's like the deal flow it's insane. And you're like, oh my gosh, everybody's bringing me these deals, and you can really start digging through some deals that no one else has access to yet, just because you're top of mind when they're thinking about selling.
Is relationship building still the way that you're finding deals, or do you have a team in place now? Or where are you at now with that?
It's all relationship. I have never sent out a mailer. I've never done any kind of marketing.
Wow.
And here's the thing, like, I don't think there's one right or wrong way. I got buddies like, that send out thousands of mailers a month, and that's, or they get every one of their deals. I've never bought from a wholesaler, but I have friends that have bought every single deal from a wholesaler and they're kicking ass. I have friends that have bought every deal from cold calling or auto tax. I have friends that it's 100% from mailer. So I don't think there's one wrong or right way. I think that building relationships fits my personality. I like people. I like having conversations. That comes natural. If that leads to a deal, great. If not, that's okay too. Maybe they become a friend, an acquaintance. Doesn't matter.
The thing that I've said, and I realized this, like maybe as I left my job or whatever, is the equity in property or the business or whatever I'm growing is not the true value. The true value is the relational equity, right? Like the who you surround yourself with. Because look, if tomorrow everything crashes down on me, right? Like I can't afford my life, whatever it might be, right? Everything goes bust. It's who, like, do I have trust and friendship with people that I can, not that I want to leverage, but I can go to and say, hey, look, I'm in a bad spot. I could use a little help right now. Not even like money, but like you said, somebody could bring you a deal or whatever the case may be. So all of that is just so important to me. You were talking earlier about like when you bought those first properties way back when, and Grant, you asked the question about like, how did you manage CapEx or capital expenditures, that kind of thing. And you're like, I figured it out, right? That initial thing. For me, I know for years and years, I didn't, go out on my own because it prevented me from acting for fear of the fact that I don't have all the answers. I don't know what to do. So I think that's a really incredible point that you did it as young as you did. When you start to elevate, you go from, single family to mobile home parks and RV parks and everything else. Is there a reset with that at all? Like, do you still have those, I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm going to have to kind of grind through a little bit here? Or is it a much smoother transition given the prior experience?
No, I mean, it's a mindset thing, right? It's a mindset shift. I think that we're all capable of whatever we believe we're capable of. And so, sometimes I get asked the question of like, hey, if you were to do it, do it again, would you do it differently? Or what would you tell someone, starting out? And it's like, I kind of have two lines of thought, because it's, that very first deal gave me the confidence to do the second deal and the next deal. My very first seller finance deal felt like a really big deal then. Like it was 2 duplexes side by side, right? So 4 units. And it's like, what am I missing? What am I missing? But doing that deal gave me the confidence to do the next one and the next one. Same thing with that first mobile home park, right? I just closed on 5 industrial complexes earlier this year, my largest purchase to date, and it's like, but that gives me the confidence. Like by the time I closed on that, I've been looking at stuff. That was a $8.1 million purchase. And I've been looking at stuff much larger that I haven't bought yet. So by the time I closed on that, that felt like a small deal to me, right? But now that that's done, it's going to give me the confidence to do more. And so I really think it is a mindset thing, because we all know people that are playing at a higher level in some aspect of our lives. And especially like, in Gobundance, a lot of real estate investors, and like, oh my gosh, I've done this and they're doing that. I mean, I remember when I had those 17 units and I went to my very first paid event in 2012, and it was $5,000. That was a lot of money for me to go to a paid event. And I am feeling like the shit. I have 17 units. Like, the people around me are like, oh, you're killing it. You're killing it. And, like I learned a lot at the event. I mean, there's, Kiyosaki was there and a lot of great speakers. But what I got really from that is like, there were people my age, younger, older, than they have like 200 units and 300 units. And it wasn't I'm envious thing. It was more of like, oh my gosh, there's so much more possible once I allow my mind to open up and believe it's possible. So every time I feel like I level up or I want to level up, it's really just a mind shift of like, okay, do I believe this is possible? And am I ready to believe this and actually actualize this in my life? Am I really ready to manifest this in my life? And even a couple months ago, I had this realization of like, you know what? I don't want to die one day, like not having reached my full potential. And it almost like freaked me out, because I feel like I am one like, all right, I have a goal. I'm going to go do it. I'm going to go make it happen. And it's like, what is my full potential? I still think about that over these last couple months. I'm like, what does my full potential look like? And how do I get there?
What is it? I was actually going to ask you that. Like, what do you, can you put words to it? What do you identify as your full potential at this point, at least? What, like, working definition?
I don't know, because it's like, I'm still processing that. And I think that anything is possible. And so I don't have full clarity around, like, and I don't think it ever ends, right? Like it always changes.
No.
Because it's kind of that question of like, when's enough enough? Like,
Yeah.
I like this game. So I don't want to ever put a ceiling. Like, maybe I get to a point where I'm like, I don't want to do real estate anymore. But right now and I've gone through, ups and downs where it's like, this is exciting, this isn't. But like right now, it's still very exciting for me. And I love the process. And until that changes, I'm going to keep doing that. But I don't know what that looks like in the future.
I don't either. Like, I think about that. What people say, like, reaching your full potential. My lead always talks about, like, one day I'm going to die, and St. Peter or whatever you believe in is going to show me like the DVD of the best version of me, and I'm just trying to get as close to that guy as I possibly can be. For you, like, I know you don't have a definition right now and you're working through it, but I'm just curious, as you process it, what comes up? Like, is it like a size of deal thing? Is it a fitness thing? Is it a lifestyle thing? Like what's the metric that, like, if you were just meditating, like, what images flash up? If you can even explain that, because I'm struggling with that as well.
Yeah, it's almost like when you ask that, it's almost like a contradiction in my mind, because I feel like there is literally nothing else that I need to do. Like, I feel like, and maybe some of that is like, I have a lot of gratitude in my life. I'm thankful for all the things in my life. I'm thankful for where I'm at. So like, I don't feel like there's 100 places I want to go, but I also don't feel like I need to go anywhere. Right. Like I want to do a whole bunch more deals, but it's like, there isn't like, I get to a point where I'm like, okay, now I've traveled to these locations and I've made it, or I'm satisfied, or I've done this many deals and now I've made it, or I'm satisfied. So it's almost contradicting. Like, if I died today, I feel like I've done everything I've wanted to do. At the same time, there's a shit ton more I want to do. And so I kind of feel both.
You ever work through this, G-Dubs? What's your thought on this? Do you ever think about full potential and how you quantify or define it, or any words, or, I don't know, images that pop up?
No, not at all. But I mean, I know I'm not living to mine. But again, I can't put a number on it, but I know there's more out there. Like internal. I know, like Aaron Velke was talking about, like, unlocking. I haven't unlocked inside and really just gone for it. So, but yeah, no, I don't know what it would be, but I know there's more out there for me.
I think for me, it's the word is impact. Like, I think I've come to that, right? Like that's what I feel like I can have a bigger impact, because it's like with money. You ever feel bad about money? The best thing you can do, in my opinion, when you feel bad about money, is give it away, right? Like, pay for the guy behind you in Starbucks, donate to somebody, because it always feels good. Money, the idea of it, the energy around it, always feels good when you give it away. I don't know of a situation where it's like, I'm going to help this person with $20, where you're like, shit, that felt awful to do, right? Like, it always feels good. Whereas a bill, or paying a bill, or buying bad food, or going out and drinking and regretting the next day, like, that doesn't feel great with money, right? The energy around money. So yeah,
Jamie, one thing you've said that you've done, and I really like this. Like, when you get a bill in a restaurant, right? You've mentioned that, like, say it's $120, you go out, you tip $120 on.
I'll double the
Yeah. I really like that. I took that. I really like that concept. I think that's a great thing I'm going to try and implement too.
And I don't even wait to see, like, if the waiter or waitress, I mean, it's the ego wants to see, like, look at me, I did that shit, right? But you leave and it just feels good. Like, you know what? That probably didn't happen today for them. I doubt it happened. Like they got 3 people that tipped the entire bill for them. And that just always feels good. So when I think about full potential, it's the same thing. I think you're right. It's like an internal feeling. And for me, it's like, when I hear, like, an emerge in a sense, somebody goes, man, because of this, I learned this, or I made a connection through whatever, or you connected me to somebody, and I can't tell you how much that's impacted my life. That feels way better than when I hear we had our most profitable month ever, or, we sold 20, or whatever it might be. So impact.
I like that. I like that a lot, Jamie, because that's something too, like, impacts something I thought about a lot. Like, I think, earlier this year, I had the chance to be with Richard Branson on Necker Island with some of the Gobundance couples. And I left that trip thinking, how do I make a bigger impact? How do I make a bigger impact with people or in the world? Because it's like a guy like that's thinking about how do you impact the world on a greater scale,
right?
And I do get a lot of fulfillment when, jumping on a podcast and someone messages and says, hey, like I needed to hear that today, or an Instagram post and like, I just needed that today. Or a message like, hey, this is my first seller finance deal. Or I've had people, I just quit my W-2 and I'm like, I love that. Like that impact brings me a lot of joy. But that trip in particular, Branson's 71 years old and he's still thinking about, and the guy's created an amazing life. Like he's out there not just, building a ton of wealth, but he's out there having fun. Like he kind of epitomizes, a lot of the things that the Gobundance tribe is about. And I think he's still out there going, how do I make a bigger impact? How do I make a bigger impact, on society? And so I do remember leaving that trip of like, how do I make a bigger impact? And I'm not 100% clear on that. I don't know what that looks like.
We've had 2 billionaires on Tribe of Millionaires, and actually there was a guy that came to spoke to Gobundance, Joe Lanzaro, Joe something. I don't know if you were on that call, Gabe, or not, but like every time your point about Richard Branson, these two guys, Jeff Hoffman and Albert Perez, who we've had on Tribe of Millionaires, or that guy Joe something, and even like if you from afar you look at like Elon. Their thinking is just out of this world, literally in Elon's case, literally like their thinking is out of this world. And it sounds like such a simple thing, but that's the difference is like, it shouldn't be this way. It should be that way. And so I'm going to make it that way. Right. Jeff Bezos, like people should have their shit delivered to their door, right? Like less than 2 days. It's unacceptable otherwise. And then did it. Right. Like, and then built it. Like people should be able to drive electric cars for a reasonable price. And then he did it. Like companies were trying to integrate electric cars for years. And then Elon comes along and just does it. So impact. Yeah, man. I think you're right. I think but even like Mother Teresa has impact, but no money. And that's fine. Right. But her life is fulfilling because of impact. I don't know.
And Jeff Hoffman, great example too. He's just amazing. The same thing. He's like, this needs to happen. For this person, he wants to elevate people, right? No, love it.
Yeah. No, unbelievable. Wow. All right, cool. We're coming up on time here. So I'm going to dip into a question from the Gobundance card game. And actually this question, it's flipping around on me. This question is interesting. I don't know. Maybe it's the same question. We're going to ask it anyway. What images and visions of your future cause you to come to life?
Gosh. Yeah. Kind of what we're talking about. Like, I don't know. I think, I immediately think I've been to a lot of beautiful places, but I just keep picturing myself just traveling. Like when you bring that up, I just think about traveling and with my family and with my wife and just, being around amazing people and amazing places.
You've done, and I follow. Obviously, we text every so often, and I see what you're doing on online and stuff like that. And man, you guys get out. You just got back from a 2-week trip, right? You've done RV trips. You've traveled here and there. What's left? Like, is there like a next space? Not what's left, but like, when you say vision of traveling? Like, what's the next place you want to go?
Yeah, I have a secret trip I'm planning right now. So, we did the 2-week. Road trip up to Glacier and Yellowstone and the Tetons. Glacier was amazing. We hiked up and got into the glacier and brought the paddleboard. And then last year, we did a 2-month RV trip. And that was really, my wife really drove that. Like I had no interest in ever doing an RV trip. I didn't even want an RV. And we had a trip planned to Thailand, and then all the airports shut down and they weren't allowing anyone to travel. And she's like, I want to get an RV and I want to go on a road trip. And I think that was one of our best trips, and we just went on the road with no plan. And I don't know, we've obviously Necker Island was beautiful, and we've gone some other places that are beautiful. We're going back to the Virgin Islands in March. So yeah, we'll I don't know. I want to go everywhere. Everywhere looks amazing to me.
Gabe, man, amazing. I appreciate all that you in this. You've done the Emerge Millionaire case study. You are a giving soul. Where should people reach out, follow you, go to a website, whatever you might want to direct people to?
Yeah, I think the best way to reach me or just follow me is on Instagram, just Gabriel R. Hamel.
Beautiful, man. It's great to having you on. I appreciate you being here. G Money, got anything else for Mr. Hamel before we let him go?
Yeah, I got to ask him, man. He's probably got the whitest teeth in Gobundance, man. Being healthy, what do you use to whiten your teeth?
Gosh, I don't know. Sometimes I just brush my teeth. Sometimes I throw
tan. He's super tan.
It looks really white and tan. I don't know if it's the lighting too. Sometimes I throw on some white teeth strips, but I think this lighting is helping me out a little bit too.
It looks good. It looks good. Yeah. Makes me think I need to quit drinking coffee. So
we got a lot of like man crush. You don't drink coffee. Yeah. We got a lot of man crush stuff. We've talked about your abs, photos of you online, your teeth, your tan. This is a little bit of a little bit of a weird show. Sexiest man in Gobundance, I think I claimed, right?
Yeah.
Flattered. That's better than, I think you introduced me as like what'd you say, a Ken doll beast or something on some text. And I was like, I don't think I like that.
Ken doll beast. Yeah, I try to keep text interesting versus like Gabe meets somebody, somebody meet Gabe. Just make it a little fun, make it a little irreverence on there. So
yeah.
Good stuff. Well, Gabe, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for jumping on this, taking the time, and always a pleasure connecting with you.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, man.